Hello, Rotarians and guests. Welcome here today. We're going to get started a couple minutes early today because we have a full agenda, and I think we're going to try to take advantage of that. So, seeing that everyone's rising already, thank you very much. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I appreciate those of you that say one nation under God, because it's very much divided, but thank you for that. Let's also do the four-way test as one of our routines with Rotary. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And before I get into the invocation, I would just like to introduce myself since I failed to do that. Kurt Laudenbach, current treasurer, and Cindy had a sudden personal matter to deal with this morning, so they called me up from the minor leagues and asked me to fill in today for a very capable Cindy. I'd like to call Jesse Schmidt up now to do our invocation.
It's always so fun to follow the tall people, which is just about everybody with me. But so please bow your heads with me. Lord, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for our many and abundant blessings. Thank you for the food we partake in, and especially those who prepare and serve it. We pray for the protection of those South Dakotans through their service to others have been recognized for their good works. We thank them for the impact on our communities and on our state. Please continue to bring prosperity to our community, our city, and our state, and our club, to lift up the well-being of us all. In your name, amen.
Thank you, Jesse. You can be seated. Thank you. I'd like to welcome all of our guests. We do have a full agenda, so unfortunately we don't have time to introduce each and one of you, but I would like anyone who is a guest or has a sponsor of a guest this morning, please rise to be recognized. Anyone? Thank you. And they're still standing. I'd like to extend a special welcome to the Rotarians that have joined us here today from Sweden, and we'll be hearing from you here in a few moments. Thank you very much. I'd like to extend a welcome to our junior Rotarians that are here this morning. Lindsay Messman from Sioux Falls Christian. Lindsay? Is Lindsay here? And Jing Yang from Lincoln is here today, so let's welcome Jing. I'd like to recognize a couple of people before we get into our normal order of business here this afternoon. We had two Rotarians from downtown Rotary that were honored at the recent district conference this past weekend in Sioux City. And those of you who don't know, we're part of Conference 5610, and the conference is held down in Sioux City. And I attended it with Matt Dittmanson and really enjoyed the opportunity to learn more about Rotary. But first, I'd like to recognize Steve Sikorski. Where's Steve? Right here. Steve received the Roger Kozak Service Above Self Award, which given in recognition of exceptional service to Rotarians in the entire District 5610. The award honors the memory of Roger Kozak, a longtime member of the Vermilion Rotary Club, who served as district governor from 2009 to 2010 and distinguished himself as an exceptional servant leader. So Steve, congratulations. Stand up so we can give you a round of applause. So this award covers the entire district, which is basically southwest Minnesota, all of South Dakota, northeast Nebraska, and northwest Iowa. So several thousand Rotarians that are part of that, and Steve was chosen from all of those to be honored with this award. So congratulations, Steve. I'd also like to recognize Tony Burke, who I don't think is here. I didn't see him. Tony received the Rotarian of Distinction Award for Area 8, which we're part of, and that's roughly 6 Rotary clubs here in the Sioux Falls area. So Tony was the most valuable player for this area, and it's presented to those who provide service through their Rotary Club and community, who have distinguished themselves among all Rotarians who strive to place service above self. So again, congratulations to Tony. He's not here, but since we're live, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. I'd like to now invite Dave Eastland and Tim Kormanga up. They're going to, and our friends from Sweden, they're going to share a few words with you about their experience in the United States. Let's welcome Dave and group.
Well, everybody is coming on up. I'll just, my first few words here. We're just so excited. We, Tim and Corey and Jan and I were part of the group that went over to Sweden for the Friendship Exchange, and it was just wonderful. And it just brings it even more excitement right now to see them come back. It's kind of like having old family come back, and they're just so excited to spend the next couple days with them. And Tim, do you got anything you want to say? Okay. All right. With that, we'll introduce Jurgen, and they can tell us just a little bit about them briefly.
Dear Rotarians, my name is Jurgen Krint, and I'm so honored to be the team leader of this group from Sweden. We are 7 people, a sacred number since ancient time. We have had visits from South Dakota in Sweden in June this year. So this is a reciprocate. We reciprocate their visit to Sweden. And these are the last few days we have here, and we've had a wonderful time in South Dakota, and we just arrived here. Let me present myself in a very few words. I live in Gothenburg, Sweden. It's on the west coast, the port city. I've been a Rotarian for 15 years. 12 of these years, I've been on the Rotary Friendship Exchange Committee. Two of these years, I've been the chair. My work has been in international business. I have, for instance, you might, with a big trading company, a major trading company based in Gothenburg, Sweden, I've helped companies like International Paper and Warehouse to do business in Asia. That's where I am coming from. My hobby is downhill skiing, and I'm the proud owner of the only downhill ski museum in Sweden. Thank you.
I can only, my name is Birgitta Quint, and I can only agree with my husband agree that I enjoy this trip very much. And we have been married for 46 years, and we, as Jurgen said, we live in Gothenburg. I have an old school academic secretary exam, and I have been working in different companies. And when I retired, before I retired, I was working with the Volvo truck headquarter company in Gothenburg for a couple of years. Okay, that's me. Thank you.
Well, my name is Stina, and I am the wife of Thorleif, and we live in the west of Sweden, right by the sea. So when we look out our window in the kitchen, we can see the big blue, and we know you are on the other side. That feels good. I have been a teacher for small children and for children in special needs. It has been such a rewarding career. And my hobby is horses, and I am the proud owner of a Pinto horse. So we go out riding every day. And it has been a wonderful experience to come here. And you get to know so much different things when you come together and live in families like we have been doing. So thank you very much for that.
Well, I'm Thorleif Josephson, and married to Stina. We live, as she said, by the coast. I have a degree in electronics. I've been in smaller businesses, having my own companies, and I've been doing products in my last company for wheel alignment of trucks and buses. And my company is now owned by the Snap-on Group in the US, and we have our products also in North America and other continents. And I'm retired at the moment and do work without pay, you can say, in different areas. And we like sailing and boating and our family and everything like that. So thank you very much. It's been also very, very, very enjoyable also to have the American group in Sweden in June for 10 days. We stayed the whole time together, and it was a fantastic time, as it is here now. Thank you very much.
My name is Ann-Marie Fernlöf, and I'm very happy to be here too. And I've been in Rotary for 22 years. I'm running a bed and breakfast in Sweden and also have real estates. I try to retire, but I have a hard time to not buy anything more, so I just bought a farm, a forest farm. So I'm going to stay there when I'm going to be retired. Thank you. And my hobbies is I like to travel, of course, and I also like horses and have a Harley Davidson, and I like skiing. Thank you.
So, hello everybody. My name is Robert Hornquist. I'm in Rotarian for 25 years, and I'm a CEO of a real estate company. And I'm not retired, I still work. And I must say it has been an extremely nice exchange tour here. And if you have the opportunity, take the chance to go and travel with Rotary. You get so many friends. I'm also appointed as the Honorary Consul of France in Western Sweden, and I'm French citizen too. And together with my wife, we have 2 wonderful children. Thank you. And my hobby is history.
And I am the only non-Swedish person. I'm French, and I've been living in Sweden since '84. I am a jurist and a judge, but in Sweden you have to start a new life. And the latest 15 years I've been teaching Swedish. So you have to make challenge in life. I have been looking so much forward. I'm a very emotional person. I'm so happy to be here today and to hand up this fantastic way through Dakota, South Dakota. I would never think about traveling to if I've not been a Rotary. It's not exactly the thing that you spot on the map. With an arrow, maybe, if you miss something as more important. But I'm so happy we're handing with you guys. It's been so wonderful when you were in Sweden, and I'm looking forward today. Thank you.
Did you want to present a banner?
Yep.
Yeah. You got to run and get it.
Okay. Well, this is a banner from our club. It's a 1-hour drive north of Gothenburg. It's an island. So, of course, we have some motive here, or picture here, resembling that. So it's a club on the coast. We have Jurgen coming up with another banner.
So
I'm pleased to give you our club banner to your president or acting president. This is our banner. This is a propeller, and our club is next to the port in Gothenburg. Please.
Thank you. Let me present ours first. And then likewise, Jorg, I would like to present you with our banner from the Rotary Club of Downtown Sioux Falls. And there you go. You guys can, if you would hold that.
Yeah.
I'll hold this, and why don't you hold that one?
Yeah. Okay.
We'll let Angie do her thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I leave it here.
Cindy's going to be so jealous. Okay. Next on our agenda is to move into our featured guests. And like Dave and company to work your way to the stage while I introduce everyone. So each year, 10 extraordinary people are inducted into the South Dakota Hall of Fame. Our downtown Sioux Falls Rotary Club has many members in the South Dakota Hall of Fame, including current Rotary members. And I'd ask you to stand as I call your name if you're here. Dana Dykehouse, Dan Kirby, Jack Marsh, Dr. Milt Mutch, Jack Renschler, Jeff Scherschlicht, Al Schoeneman, Marion Sullivan, and Dr. Lauren Cheddar. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. We've also invited other inductees into the South Dakota Hall of Fame to join us at Rotary today. We'd like to extend our warm Rotary welcome to, and again, I'd ask you to stand as I call your name, Dick Brown, neighbor Gary Conradi, Dave Kapaska, Angela Kennecke, Craig Lloyd, John Porter, John Soderholm, and Mary Olinger. Let's give them a round of applause. The honor ceremony for the class of 2022 for the South Dakota Hall of Fame was held on September 10th. This year's inductees included Paul Nurk from Rapid City, Dr. Charles Hart from Rapid City, Grace Martin Hiley, who's deceased, Tad Perry from Fort Pierre, Ron Reed from Rapid City, Bev Warren from Rapid City, and Mark Shalanta, who is also deceased, as we all know. In addition, we have 3 members of the class of 22 that are from the Sioux Falls area who are with us today to be on our panel. I'd first like to introduce Randall Beck, a lifelong journalist who served as the editor and publisher of the Sioux Falls Argus Leader and later co-founded South Dakota News Watch, a nonprofit journalism organization with Rotarian Jack Marsh. Randall has been blessed to serve as a mentor for over 20 years, pouring thousands of hours into the lives of many young people. He also co-founded the Sioux Falls Hope Coalition, which this year will place 325 children in a highly qualified preschool program free of charge, giving them a much higher chance of success. Let's welcome Randall. Dennis Dugard is our next guest. Throughout his career, Dennis has been a servant leader. He left a successful career in banking to serve as the development director and later the executive director of Children's Home Society. He carried that attitude of servant leadership into his roles as a state legislator, lieutenant governor, and later elected as the 32nd governor of South Dakota, serving from 2011 to 2019, where he was recognized as the most popular governor in the United States. Dennis. Chantel Krebs has had a successful career in business entrepreneurship and consulting, a decade in the South Dakota legislature, and served as South Dakota's 28th Secretary of State. Ascending from Miss South Dakota in 1977 to eventually serve as the CEO of Miss America is quite a story in itself. But for Chantel, those are merely bookends into a life of service, which includes creating the Avera Academy, a program that introduces and encourages first-generation Americans to pursue a career in healthcare. Let's welcome Chantel. And leading our panel discussion today is Dave Rosenboom, member of the Board of Directors of the South Dakota Hall of Fame, and also serving as the president for First Premier Bank. Let's welcome Dave. And Dave, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Kurt. Before we go any further, I want to make a couple of other introductions. First of all, we've got some other board members with us from the South Dakota Hall of Fame that I would like to invite to stand. John Porter is actually going to be our incoming chair. We've got Michelle Lavalle. We've got Janan Berberovic. And we also have Dr. Lauren Cheddar. Thank you. Well, thank you, panelists, for being here today. It's quite an an honor to be selected and inducted into the South Dakota Hall of Fame. You now join over 700 distinguished South Dakotans to be so recognized by the Hall since it was established back in 1974. So my first question is this. What was your reaction when you found out that you were selected to South Dakota Hall of Fame, and what does it mean to you? So Chantel, you were born in DeSmet, graduated from Arlington High School, and an alumnus of Dakota State University. Let's hear from you first.
Great. Well, I think that we look around the room, just in this room alone, and you see the successes of many hardworking South Dakotans that have really pioneered so many industries and associations and groups and nonprofits. And many of you, whether you're here as an inductee or a fellow inductee of the Hall of Fame or not, it doesn't matter because you've been a servant leader. And being in Rotary, you're a servant leader. So when you ask me what does it mean, I think for anyone, it was first a shock and it's humbling, but you also just then sit back and think that, wow, do I have the stats to be a part of that? Because everybody that you see, especially even in this room, you've given so much to our community and our state. So thank you. I think that's an appropriate word, is to be grateful. And thank everyone in this room for all that you do, whether you're in the Hall of Fame or in any type of an honor. It's just that many of the times that what you do every day, it's a thankless job. So thank you for what you do in our communities.
So Dennis, you were, can I call you Dennis?
Yes, yeah.
I think I called you Dennis since I started working with you in 1985.
I've been called a lot of things. Dennis is good. Dennis would be pretty good.
It's not a four-letter word either. So you were born in Del Rapids, graduated from Del Rapids High School, graduated from University of South Dakota, and then got your law degree from Northwestern University in Chicago. So what was your reaction?
Well, like Chantel, very much appreciated it. I knew I was nominated. Dr. Milt Much called me up and told me he wanted to nominate me. He said because of his eyesight, he needed some help with the application, so he was going to recruit my son-in-law, which he did. But so I knew that I was being nominated. But it was very nice that, as Chantel said, there are so many people very deserving in South Dakota of recognition, and so it was very nice.
Randall, so this is a bit of a different story. You're a native of Clay Center, Kansas?
That's right, yep.
You didn't arrive in South Dakota until you were 48 years old, when you took on the role of executive editor at the Argus Leader. So what was your reaction? What does it mean to you to be in the South Dakota Hall of Fame?
Well, Dave, some of you out there know this story. I was actually in the living room when I took the call from Marcy Burdick, who is the current chair of the Hall of Fame board. My wife was sitting next to me. I had no idea what Marcy was calling about. She announced this news to me, and in my wife's words, for the first time in recorded history, Randall Beck was speechless. I had nothing I could say because, like Dennis and Chantel, I was completely awed by this company, these 750 people who had been recognized before me. So to find out that I'm in the same class, not only as people like Mark Shalanta and our dear friend Chantel and Dennis, but also people like Hugh Glass. People who have writ history across our region and our nation was just overpowering, and I lost my voice. It was an amazing honor. Thank you, Dave.
So our downtown Sioux Falls Rotary Club has a key initiative of mentorship. And so during your lifetime, can you share a story about someone who mentored you and how that helped contribute to your success? Dennis, let's begin with you.
Okay. Well, Dave was kind enough to share some of these questions, so I thought about this. And I'd have to say my first mentor, though probably not seeing himself in that way, was my dad. He was, I idolized my dad. I think he was such a hardworking guy. He was a stoic. He showed my sisters and I great love. He had tremendous humility, and he had a disability, but he never let that define him. He was just a spectacular guy to me. Not financially very successful, but very successful in, I think, the way that we should define that word. Another mentor to me more recently was Dave Loving, the former Rotarian, downtown Rotarian, who died at much too young an age, just after he retired from Children's Home. I went to work at Children's Home in 1990, and so I worked with Dave until his retirement, and that was, I believe, in 2002. And what a great man he was. Just very financially, he showed great financial discipline at Children's Home. When we weren't doing very well financially, he turned Children's Home around very quickly. And he was very well disciplined, but he was also a very humane person, very humane, cared about other people and demonstrated that. So he was just a wonderful mentor. And then most recently, a third mentor, again, he probably would never have seen himself or defined himself that way, but Jeff Erickson. He retired from Great Western Bank just before I was elected governor, and he dropped everything and moved to Pierre and helped me with the 2 months of transition, because you think that, well, once the election over, then you relax. You can finally relax. No, then you've got to build a budget, you've got to hire a cabinet and hire staff and move to Pierre, and he helped me make good choices in staff and cabinet, and that's really so important as in any leadership role, to find people and surround yourself with people that are as good or better than you are, so that you can succeed because of them. And Jeff helped me do that.
Randall.
I've had a lot of great bosses and wonderful mentors in my life, including some in this room. The one that I'd like to talk about briefly, I met my first week here in South Dakota on the job. It was August, second week of August, 2001. My secretary says there's a gentleman downstairs who'd like to come up and meet you and introduce himself. As editor, you never know what that means. But because I was the new guy, it couldn't be all bad. So in walks a guy who introduced himself as Roger Frederickson. Many of you in this room knew and respected, admired Roger. Roger told me, he said, "My name is Roger Frederickson." He didn't say that he was kind of a big deal in this town. He said, "But I'm here to pray for you, to challenge you, and to hold you accountable to be the very best editor you can be." Well, that sort of took me by surprise. I thought that was kind of brazen of him. But as you know, Roger, he actually delivered on that promise. He stuck to me like glue all of the years until he died. He would show up at low points in my career and pump me up. He would show up at times when I thought I was kind of a big deal and bring me back down. He had a remarkable ability to really tutor me in the principles of what I would call compassionate leadership. He was such a great example of that. And the second thing is he was an example of someone who was able to do many good things in the city, not because of his job or his position as a pastor, but because of his relationships in this town. It's really from Roger that I learned that we can only do anything effective and good and lasting in this community, in this state, by the people we know, we're blessed to call friends. And I really learned that idea from him, and I've put into practice many of those principles. So I'm grateful for Roger and his life and the influence that he had on me.
Thank you, Randall. Chantel.
When I really think back in my life, I think obviously your mother and father, just because of the hard work that they've instilled in me, but it'll go back to my first business that I opened up or started at 10 years of age. And that was because Mom and Dad said I needed to do something and learn about business. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My grandfather had a John Deere dealership. The other one had a horse trailer business. My father had the trucking company. My mom ran the family farm. And they had me start up a lawn mowing business for the local ladies that my mother was in circle with at the church. And I'd get $4 a lawn. I bought my first used lawnmower for $50. But when you asked me specifically the mentors, it was those little ladies that would invite me in to have a little cookie and lemonade with them after I got done mowing. And Edith and Polly and Bernice and Teresa, and I can list my 22 clients that I had, and the stories that they'd share with me at 10 years, at 11 years, at 12 years of age, where they were school teachers and secretaries, but some of the challenges that they had in life in the early 1900s. And that was really a great exposure for me at a very young age. First of all, communication skills, but learning to what they dealt with as wives and moms and of women that worked in the community. So I think of Bernice and Polly and Teresa many times of what they said, where at that time I was just grateful for the lemonade and the cookie. But looking back, it was the best advice that they gave to me, was those moments.
Mentorship, none of those would have identified as a mentor, but they all made a powerful difference in your life, and I think it's just a good reminder, for all of us. So as a board member, I've enjoyed the opportunity to literally read hundreds of nominations for the South Dakota Hall of Fame. It's a true joy being part of the board. And the accomplishments of the candidates are simply amazing. So I know how stiff the competition is, and for you to be recognized, you obviously have a remarkable list of achievements. So I acknowledge this, that the person you're least comfortable talking about is yourself. But we would appreciate if you could share a highlight that was particularly meaningful to you during your career or time. And so with that, Randall, I'm going to invite you to start.
Somehow I knew I was going to be first on that one. Well, there's a lot of good things that I've been blessed to be involved in, but I've had to pick one for this crowd. I would say that it was the day back in 2002 or 3 when the South Dakota Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Argus leader in its lawsuit to open sealed pardons in this state that the former governor, Bill Janklow, had sealed. Now, here's why. I know some of you out there are thinking, well, that's not much of an accomplishment. I think it was a blow for openness in a state that had really not treasured openness, where transparency, as Dennis and Chantel both know, was not really a part of the conversation, and governors had been able to do essentially what they wanted to do. And in this case, the Argus leader and me personally felt that was a bridge too far, that in this state where a governor gets his power or her power from the governed, that you can't pardon someone of a crime and then put it in a bank vault and protect it from the public. You've taken an oath to serve. So the Argus leader took a risk. Our attorneys at the time said it was not going to succeed. We wouldn't be able to win. But against all odds, we won that case. And that day when the Supreme Court announced that those pardons, I think it was 300 or 400 of them across the state, had to be unsealed and revealed to the public, was a good day professionally for me, and I believe for the state of South Dakota.
Thank you, Randall. Chantel, what highlight holds special meaning to you?
The entire 4 years as Secretary of State. And for those of you that may know or do not know, when you take on your own party to run for an office, because it's the right thing to do, and not knowing how troubled that office was, and walking into it and then cleaning that office up as Secretary of State, there was a lot of rewards every day. I said I always had Christmas every day in that office, because the Christmas gift was either finding something that was wrong and then trying to clean it up. There are several moments, though, specifically, is the original state flag, which had been stolen from the office by the previous administration. And we returned it. Marty Jackley and the FBI returned it from Washington, D.C. It was a very proud moment because everybody said, I that you forgot about that, right?
Yeah, I did.
You just those moments that you could not believe. We said it did not get stolen, and it did. And so to have that brought, when Marty Jackley brought that back into my office, that was just a really cool thing because it's a state flag. It's your original state flag. That was a proud moment. And thinking when you said the sealed pardons, they're in my desk, and I had the locked key for the rest of them that you didn't get to seal. And I'd forgotten about that. And I had to say, I had to peek and look at a few of them. But, when that office was so far behind on filings, because a lot of you as business owners were not getting businesses started up and filed. They were 4 months behind. Just to be able to say now we are filing 80,000 businesses a year in real time. This is one of the most proud moments when somebody says, thank you, I got my business documents filed in 5 minutes, and they weren't able to do that, and you had to wait 4 months to get a business filing done. Or let's talk about the voter registration drives that we had in the school systems. And so having been in the legislature in a political party affiliation, when you're Secretary of State, you have to remove that hat. And so every day you just did the right thing. Business filings, UCC bank filings, pardons, executive proclamations, all of those treasured documents, and there are millions of them that we kept in that office. It's a problem with the original state flag, finding and getting the original state flag back.
So Dennis, what's one of your highlights?
Well, I think probably one in the last, when I was as governor, one of the first major challenges that came up quite unexpectedly was the Missouri River flood in 2011. I had just been sworn in January, and then in May of that same year, the Army Corps of Engineers called to say that the dam, all the dams would be releasing record amounts of water, and it would cause tremendous flooding along the Missouri River watershed, and they kept, and so of course I was an inexperienced new governor and not knowing what to do for sure, and we'd never had anything happen like this in South Dakota. Most floods, they come unexpectedly, you don't have any warning, and you're dealing with the aftermath. It's like a tornado or a flood. It happens before you know it's happening, and then you clean up and recover. It's not something that is predicted, as this was, saying in 10 days, you've got about 10 days notice before we open up the faucets, if you will. And they predicted the record. At that time, the Oahe Dam, for example, was 49 years old. It was almost half a century old. And the record release at that time was 59,000 cubic feet per second out of Oahe, 59,000 cubic feet per second. And they predicted that the release would be 80,000 cubic feet per second. Well, in fact, they said that, and then a day later they said, no, we recalculated, it's going to be more like 90. And then a couple days later they said, no, sorry, it's going to be more like 110. And in the end, it was 160,000 cubic feet per second. And so trying to build the levees alongside the cities of Pierre and Fort Pierre and down around Dakota Dunes, and not knowing whether you get the levees built in time, or even if we did get them built, would they hold? And in the end, we had several very close calls where we did get the levees up, but there was a flaw in one, or there was another flaw in another, where we detected the breach about to occur in time to stabilize it. But so I'd say that was meeting that challenge, and over a multi-month period, because the water was that high for 3 months. So meeting that challenge and getting the levees up, making sure they held, I feel good about that. In the end, there were over 100 houses that were completely destroyed, and thousands were damaged, but no one lost their life, and most overland flooding that would have destroyed anything in its path was prevented. And so I feel pretty good about that. I was very lucky, very lucky.
Well, thank you. That was a challenging time for all of us here in South Dakota. So one of my favorite pearls of wisdom from my mom, who I lost last year at the age of almost 101, so she had a lot of pearls of wisdom, but was to remember that not every path in life is straight. And I'm sure that each of you have had to overcome some obstacles. And so would you be willing to share a challenge that you've faced and any lessons you've gained from that? Chantel.
When you think, loves the challenges you face. I mean, there's multiple, I think, on a daily basis that we face challenges, but probably in the Secretary of State's office, doing the right thing, but specifically overcoming budget challenges with that office is being able to try to repair it and get it to where it should be. You have to go through the legislature, which we were one of them before and previously. So having been a legislator and then now on the other side where you have to ask and beg for money, it's a different story. And those challenges were to get that approval that quickly and wanting the budget to be approved by your office and they tell you no, and then not being able to do it and have to wait to get things fixed that the general public is frustrated with. So you're trying to balance the frustration of the public, yet you can't get the funding from the legislature, and you're stuck in the middle. So balancing those needs. So those challenges were, I think that year, in the second year when I was Secretary of State, trying to clean that up and not getting it done. So it was my patience was probably challenged when you think about it specifically. And I had to be patient for a year because I couldn't do the things that we needed to do to move forward and continue cleaning that office up. So I'll go with that one.
Thank you. Dennis, let's come back to you.
Okay.
What obstacle?
The way I took that question was thinking about something that was a challenge. I think we all are in some ways bounded by our own self-doubts. We all put on a veneer of confidence and capability, and yet down deep we all have some ingredient of worry that we're not up to the task or up to doing what we want to achieve or do. And I saw this in myself when Linda and I were first married. We bought the building site on the farm where I grew up near Del Rapids. That's where we live now. And we wanted to build a house, but we couldn't afford to do that. And so my dad said, well, why don't you build the house yourself? Build your own house. And I said, I can't do that, Dad. I went to law school, I work at a bank. I can't build a house. And he said, well, I think you could. I think if you just decide to do that, I'll help you, but I think you could do that. And with his goading, I'll call it, no, with his encouragement, Linda and I did that. We hired a concrete guy to come and dig the basement and pour the foundation, and then we did pretty much everything after that. And we had an infant daughter at the time. We moved in with my parents, so we wouldn't have any housing costs for that period that we were building. And then I worked at the bank all day and then work on the house at night and on weekends, and it took about 10 months to get it to the point where we could move in our house, and it really wasn't quite finished then. We didn't have any doors on, we didn't have any flooring in the bathroom, we had the toilet on the subfloor, but Linda was ready to move out of her in-laws' house, and we did it. So it was a challenge, but it made you realize that how sometimes you limit yourself just because of self-doubt. And so it was a good lesson for me.
I think most people would take 10 months for a home to be built today.
Yeah, these days especially.
Yeah. Randall.
So about a semester and a half into my first assault on a college degree, the Dean of Arts and Sciences at Kansas State University called me in. He was looking at my midterm grades, and he said, Mr. Beck, I'm looking at your grades here, and they're not pretty. I said, in fact, they're all Fs. He said, it is clear to me that you are not ready for us, and I can assure you, we're not ready for you. He said, I suggest that you take advantage of the drop-ad system then in place and cash in your books, cash in your classes, and go grow up before you start school again. So I did. He was right, of course. It took about 4.5 years for me to grow up. It was a dark time in my life. Did a lot of things that I'm not proud of, and found myself in situations that were, I think, not what my parents would have dreamed of. But it taught me a lot of things about myself, and it taught me that, as Dave said in the question, that not everything is in a straight line in this life, and that some of us, we don't follow some prototype to success. I was lucky enough to have, during that time, people who came alongside me, who challenged me, who approached me in love and discernment to sort of say, when you grow up, you need to get back on the horse and ride again, and encourage me that once being a failure doesn't mean I could always be a failure. That there was a way for me to get back on the path and find success in my life, and those people were right, even though I didn't see it at the time. So I owe a lot of credit to those people who encouraged me and pushed me and challenged me, even yelled at me to return, to try another time to get a college degree. Fortunately, I was successful the next time, but it taught me a lot of things to be a better parent, I think, to help my kids see that there wasn't one path or road to a good life. And I think with other kids who are maybe today, they're wandering souls, they're struggling at some level, I have a little bit of, I think, a credibility if I share with them my own life. So it taught me a lot about a lot of things, and I think it made me ultimately a better person. People took a risk on me, and we should take, I think, as a group, a risk on those kids who are struggling right now with their lives. So it changed me.
Terrific message. Thank you. So South Dakota Hall of Fame has a number of pillars to the programming that we provide and sponsor for the state of South Dakota, one of which is our Legends and Learning program, and it tells of inspiring stories of those in South Dakota who champion a culture of excellence. And these stories serve to inspire young people to dream big and to know what is possible here in South Dakota. So what advice might you give or inspiration that you could provide to our youth in South Dakota who oftentimes wonder if they need to move out of state to have the same opportunities that you've been able to afford? So Dennis, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned in the introduction, I went to law school in Chicago for 3 years, and then after graduating, I stayed in Chicago for another 3 years and worked there. And I was attracted to go to law school there because of the bright lights and the big city, and thought it would be a great opportunity to see the world in a way and have more opportunity. And it was exciting at first, but the wider world is increasingly overcrowded and impersonal and uncaring, especially the more crowded we become, the less we know our neighbors. And South Dakota is still small enough that you can know your neighbors. You can know a lot of people around the whole state. And it's more humane. It's more personal and more caring. And we so often define success in financial terms, and it's good to have money and the things that money can buy. But as someone said, it's important to stop and check once in a while to see that you haven't lost the things that money can't buy. And there's so much in South Dakota that money can't buy that it's a great place to live. It's a great place to work. There are wonderful opportunities for financial success as well as success as defined in other ways.
Randall.
I've lived in a lot of states, so I know a little bit about, I think, this question and what makes this remarkable place we live in unique. I think, unlike every other state my wife and I have lived in, the deck is not stacked against you here. And I don't know what it is about that egalitarian tradition here, the idea that no matter who you are, no matter what you look like and what happened before you, your parents and your grandparents, the level that you came from, that you're really only as good today as you're willing to put into it. You don't bring in a suitcase of traditions and stuff that works against you. I feel like this is unique. It's not normal for that to happen. So it's a state that values hard work and, in fact, requires it for success, no matter how you might measure that. But it's also a place where if you got a good idea, and it's a good idea, there are people who will walk alongside you and help you make that a reality. I've seen it happen again and again and again with unlikely people. So it is a state where we don't hold your past against you. And so if I'm a student graduating from Lincoln High School or from SDSU, I would urge them, and in fact I do, give it a chance, stay here, find out what the state can do for you, and you'll find out that it can treat you well if you treat it well. So we are unique in that way. It's not because of the number of people here. That's not why. There's a culture here where we value hard work and initiative and great ideas, and I see it happen every day.
Haven't heard it said that way, and that's a wonderful perspective. Thank you. Chantel.
Well, I get to be a part of that every day now, and it's one of my most blessed moments in my life is my career now with Avera Academy. And the Avera mission is to make a positive impact in the lives in our communities. And with the good help of the Avera McKinnon system, they've encouraged and we support first-generation Americans. And creating the Avera Academy, now I get to deal with first-generation Americans that are seniors in high school. And we support them through scholarship funding. But every day that I'm with them, I get to share character-building soft skills and tips. And these kids are just not exposed, and it really puts a perspective for you that all those things that you take for granted every day, whether it be transportation and food on the table and gas in your car, they do not have. But we try to take that one step further with them and share these just basic tips, like start a 401k and what does budgeting mean? Because they don't hear those conversations in school. What does it mean to save $5 a week? What does it mean about social media and that what you post is going to live with you forever? So I try to share those tips with them every day of just little things that you and I take for granted. But the one thing I keep harping at them, and I do work with them in scholarships, and that's something that most of these students don't know where to go for scholarships. So I'm helping them and guiding them to where to apply for scholarships and getting them on their career paths for that reason. But I always try to tell them every day is that a good person surrounds herself with even better people. And I think you've said that too, Dennis, that you surround yourself with better people. So look at your company around you. And who do you have beside you, ahead of you, and behind you? And that's going to make you the successful person that you want to be and how you define it. So it's very rewarding what I get to do at Avera.
So those are a few of the questions that I gave you a heads up on. Now we have an opportunity for those in the audience to catch them on the spot. And so just invite the audience here to, if you have a question, I'd love to hear it.
Good afternoon, Shelley Johnson, Rotarian. I have a question for Chantel. I was very intrigued by your stories of the ladies that you spent time with as a young girl. Can you just impart some of the advice that they gave you back at that time?
Yeah, sure. Well, when you're 10 and 11, sometimes some of it it didn't make sense to you. It really, when you think about it. But I can recall many of them just say it is a man's world at that time. It was interesting. Remember, I was 1973, so I was 10, so it was like 1983, 84, 85, 86. Through about 89, I had that lawn mowing business. So in that time, they just said that you're going to have to work a lot harder, sit at the front of the table. When you're in the room, don't sit down, stand up when you speak. It was just little things like that that I think it was very interesting. And a lot of these women, a couple of them had become, they were school teachers and then tried to become principals and were limited to those opportunities in their careers, and worked in a men's environment. And I can relate to that. I was working at a John Deere dealership part-time, Knipe implement. So the Knipe family, working for the Knipe family was very interesting and entertaining, as the Knipe family farms and operations and debates would happen right in the floor before you when I was in the parts department. But I could implement that, you never step away, you become engaged. And the other one that they said a lot was raise your hand. If you don't raise your hand, you're not going to be included. That was one that really stood out. You got to raise your hand. Like it or not, it's not going to be easy, but you got to raise your hand.
Thank you. Eric.
Thanks for joining us today. We've heard, Chantel, from you about some of the things you're involved in currently. How about the rest of you? You're honored for the things you've done up to this point, but you're not done yet. What things are you involved in currently?
Randall? Well, kids really are my passion. The well-being of kids, and especially the kids Chantel mentioned, the kids who maybe are born with a couple of strikes against them already, and so not just mentoring, but really advocating for them and helping to level the playing field for those kids, whether they're new Americans or kids whose circumstances are just challenged. So that really, in retirement, I don't believe in that word, like some of you out there. I sort of abolished that word from our household. I just really think that this community has been so good to my wife and I that it's our time to give back, to make it a better place that we found it. And so kids really, I think, is one way that I really help I think, enrich the next generation is through focusing on them. So it's a privilege to be able to do that. And my job made it possible, teed up all of these great relationships. People I know around town who can write a check or can make something happen, who can get, join me and us in those efforts. So what a great privilege to see how my career teed up this part of my life. It's been wonderful to see that.
For my part, I'm not retired yet fully, although I do have a lot more free time now. I'm on probably more boards than I should have said yes to. I'm on a couple of nonprofit boards, the South Dakota Community Foundation, a great board to be on. A hangover from when I was governor. I'm still involved in the Western Governors Association. I'm on their foundation board for another year. And then I was very grateful to be invited to join some corporate boards after I left office. So I'm on a bank board, a trust company board, 2 energy company boards, and a food company board. And they all have quarterly meetings or more. So that gives me some mental exercise, and so I still can read a balance sheet and adopt a budget and talk about some of those topics that those boards have before them. So that's interesting. And then we have all 3 of our kids live here in Sioux Falls. 2 are members of Rotary, in fact, Laura Mitchell and Chris Dugard. And then our daughter Sarah works for a Raven spinoff, the Aerostat division. She's an electrical engineer. So all 3 kids are here in Sioux Falls, and we have among those 3 kids and their spouses 7 grandkids. So we do a lot. We had all 7 grandkids out to our place yesterday, and I got to pick up 3 of them tomorrow. And so every week there's a lot of granddad, take care of the grandkids duties. as part of the week.
So rapid fire, we'll go in any closing thoughts or piece of advice or characteristic or trait that you just like to share with the audience. One final go around. Chantel?
I'm going to say raise your hand. And again, that's somebody, again, one of my beautiful lawn mowing ladies said it, and I use that quite a bit with the kids. And I think for all of us, and trust me, in this room, you're all raising your hand all the time, every day. So now how do you encourage others to do that? So asking somebody else. And sometimes we all get asked to do the things, and of course we all say yes. Then we go, why did we say that? So it's hard for us to ask somebody else, but put somebody else on the spot to make them say yes and raise their hand. Because that's what the community is, and that's our job also, is to spread that message and push out that network and web.
Randall?
I'm still learning how to say I'm sorry for almost anything, you name it. Two people have really taught me profound lessons in that. First, my wife, but secondly, Bill Janklow, because in the final days before he died, he reached out to me, and the two of us crossed swords a lot, as some of you know. And we, in one of the most remarkable afternoons of my life, we met in my vehicle at Elmwood Golf Course in the parking lot. And he apologized for saying and doing things that had, offended me. And I had the opportunity to apologize to him for doing the same thing. So it was an example at that moment of the power of saying I'm sorry, of asking forgiveness, and for realizing that we'll have more in common than we do that separates us here in God's country.
A good piece of advice that I think is worthy of following is to start each day being thankful, and not being thankful in the sense of thinking that, but rather think, what did somebody do for me yesterday or this week that I haven't thanked them for? And so this morning, the first thing I did is I wrote a thank you note to somebody who did something for me yesterday. And I think it's so easy to get a benefit from somebody who's your friend or who's a neighbor or a relative, and then you say thank you on the spot and you're done. Well, that's the minimum. And really, you should do better. And so I'm trying to do better that way.
I hope you've all enjoyed hearing from just a few members of the class of 2022 for the South Dakota Hall of Fame. How about one final round of applause?
Thank you. And that 45 minutes reminds us of why we live in South Dakota. I think we heard it summarized in 3 words or 3 comments. Say, I'm sorry, raise your hand, and say thank you. Isn't that a simple way of going about our lives? Love it. Thank you very much. And the 3 of them showed why they're the recipients of this honor, and again, why we live in South Dakota. And Dave, thanks for the great questions. Very appropriate. Did you have another comment?
I do. Any member who's been inducted into the South Dakota Hall of Fame, we want to do a photo. And so let's just meet over on this side, and we'll capture that and let everybody go. So with that, Kurt, turn it back to you.
Very good. Thank you. And I will now declare Rotary adjourned.